Transition Director of TIACA, and together with my colleagues from TIACA and pharma.io, we are really welcoming you to this first webinar on Project Sunrays. It's the first series, it's not the first one. We had a similar one yesterday. So today I have the honor to host it, introduce and manage the Q&A session at the end. JC Yip from Changi Airport, who is board member of pharma.io and is the project lead for Sunrays on pharma.io side, will introduce the project. And Bert Elsen from For Advice is going to present the first insights that we've collected through Sunrays projects. The first session we had yesterday was already very interactive, lots of good questions, and this is really the idea, is to have a two-way discussion with you guys. First, providing some updates on the insights that we've collected through the first weeks of the project, and second, to have your questions and also your experience sharing. I'd like to remind you, it was the step before, but I'd like to remind you that this has to be conducted in compliance with antitrust laws. It's very important, and in case this is not the case, we will have to stop the conversation, and we may have to ask you to leave the webinar or terminate the webinar in case this is not compliant. Having said that, I'm very pleased to give the floor to JC, and she will really introduce the why we launched this project Sunrays. JC, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Celine. Next slide, please, Bert. Right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. We are currently living in unprecedented and uncertain times. At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, our air cargo industry battled with the sudden and acute reduction of belly hold capacity. Then came the PPE distribution challenge, from which we have gained some valuable experience from transporting voluminous amount of cargo globally through a very short period of time. However, we have not met our greatest logistical challenge of all time yet, the COVID-19 vaccines global transportation. The COVID-19 vaccines are currently being developed at an incredible and breakneck pace. There are still many uncertainties on the vaccines with regards to the development timelines, trade lanes, packaging, as well as handling and storage requirements. Some vaccines furthest along the clinical trials are developed on a new platform that require deep frozen transportation conditions as we know it today. Next slide, please, Bert. Once a vaccine is being approved, global logistics operations need to be awakened. Vaccines will need to be deployed in a timely, reliable, and secured fashion to consumers and patients to save lives and to restart our economies. With a tsunami of information and so much variables, uncertainties, and unknowns, this makes logistics planning not only an uphill task, but also a very risky one. Next, please. So now, more than ever, industry collaboration is paramount. Therefore, both TIACA and pharma.io, which are founded on the principles of industry collaboration, are coming together for Project Sunrays. Through Sunrays, we hope to illuminate the vaccine supply chain requirements and provide useful guidelines to the airfreight industry to be adequately prepared to handle, store, and transport the COVID-19 vaccines to the world. Since then, a joint task force has been established between our two organizations. Together, our members represent each node of the air cargo supply chain. The joint task force today comprises of Changi Airport Group, Neutral Air Partner, Turkish Airlines, SATS, Flexport, Edmonton International Airport, Miami International Airport, as well as Brussels Airport. Next, please. I also like to add that Project Sunrays is broken down into 4 work packages and major milestones. Throughout the project, we will be combing through the latest developments on public domain. We will be conducting one-on-one interviews with vaccines producers and logistics professionals like yourself. We have recently concluded an industry survey to gather the industry readiness and preparedness, as well as your concerns and needs. Ultimately, we hope to provide value to our members and provide you with guidelines and recommendations, as well as our strong call for greater collaboration. So with this note, I'd like to pass on the time to Bert Elson, which will bring you insights that we have gathered from various vaccine producers and the air cargo industry to date. Over to you, Bert.
Hey, Jessie, thank you very much for the nice introduction. As mentioned before, we have 4 work packages, and the first 2 we have just achieved, and let me share those with you. The first we had is the pharma industry check to receive their information requirements to be prepared for the COVID vaccine. We started at first with the members that were linked with pharma.io, where we established a questionnaire, and then we sent the questionnaire to them. We expanded, of course, our group with the other ones who are currently in the running for developing the vaccine COVID-19. And there we went into social media, into information, into links with them to have information from them. So our information that we have collected is based on the one-to-one interviews, weekly engagements with some of the vaccine manufacturers, and with publication focused on the main key vaccine developers. But first, let's start with giving you the glance of the normal traditional route to develop a vaccine. We have first the 2 steps where we are in the preclinical and to develop and to search, and later we go into the phases and giving actually the development of the vaccine real form. Normally, it takes 6 to 18 years in total to develop this, and from the first phase, it takes in an average 4 to 8 years. If we look to the timeline below, we see from the phase 1, the red arrow, we see actually a round time from 12 months. What is giving us and causing us a lot of issues, not only for a pharmaceutical, but in this timing, they need also to establish the support and the logistics in somewhere in the middle. So that is, of course, causing serious conflicts and some serious issues. Of the 3 vaccines that are advanced to phase 3, 2 of them, one made by Moderna, the National Institute of Health, and the other by Pfizer, together with BioNTech, need to be kept in a near constant deep freeze temperature. Pfizer expects its vaccine to be stored in a temperature as low as -80 Celsius, while Moderna need to be kept at a -20 Celsius. Another leading vaccine candidate being developed by AstraZeneca and together with the Oxford University must be kept cool but not frozen. J&J will go also for a vaccine which needs to be kept cool. Another challenge on correct or good supply will be for the vaccine who needs 2 dose treatments. After the first dose, there is an average or between 12 and 20 days to have the next treatment. So if we had one challenge to bring 1 doses on time and in good conditions to the patient, it will be followed within a week or 2 with the next dose that needs to be there also on time and in good condition. Otherwise, the first dose or the treatment can be cancelled or have no effect. We have here used the source WHO to publish the latest landscape of the COVID-19 vaccine candidates published on the 28th of September on their website. But there is a lot of more information out there, which is mentioning other information and other numbers. So that's also a challenge. On our side, in our project, we try to obtain information directly from the front line, with example for here the shippers. But this is a challenge because also them are not able to share all kind of information and delicate, trustable information with us. Articles and information mentioned like limited production or clinical trial phase 3 is sometimes also misleading and can be interpreted that vaccines are already manufactured for the big quantities or for the big audience. A challenge where we can have and occur is that there is a need for transport to be on dry ice, as mentioned on the previous slide. We take here an example of the box type X that needs to be 22 or 32 kilos of dry ice to maintain the product at -70°C for inside during the transit time of 136 hours. But it depends on the airline and type of aircraft. There are limitations to carry dry ice on board of an aircraft. In our slide, we have mentioned a specific restriction table from one of our members. Another example is, for example, an ANAT of type 124 that which has no limitations on to carry dry ice. It depends all on the freighter and on the airline. If we look into the information we have identified on the net, we see, for example, a minimum order quantity of one box, 1,000 doses. If you know that a country just has been purchased to 400 million doses for one country, how many boxes we need? If you know how many boxes, you know how many dry ice is needed to supply. The question we have to ask is the country where the manufacturing will take place, do they have the right enough dry ice supply? What with potential refill activities? Is it allowed? Can it be done? Can it be performed? Other information that we have received is that almost every box, because it's a high sensitive and short transport time, will be monitored by a sensor, which means it carries lithium batteries. Again, a temperature of -70°C inside the box means, for example, it needs to be transported on an outside temperature of 25°C and has a limited shipping time as 136 hours to reach the destination. We need a service that can guarantee this transit time, including all the steps in the supply chain, meaning security, customs, and others. We have identified some potential manufacturing sites, which already having a big chance to provide vaccine manufacturing. It gives us an idea where possible trade lanes can start from, towards to other regions or countries. But again, please bear in mind that a lot is still not known, and of course cannot be shared with us, and of course is due to difference, it can be changed in the course of the time. Another element here is what with the last mile? What are possibilities? A vaccine, for example, that is kept frozen and has a short shipping time, need to provide it, which need to be provided to the patient in an equipped environment to handle the -70 or -20°C. This will not go probably to a regular pharmacist. This means an impact on the distribution network and or local regional supply. All these issues cause a lot of troubles, but also a lot of challenges on our road to the supply. To recap the information we have obtained from the industry pharmaceutical, the requirements we have put it here on the overview. The requirements are, for example, speed and express services or security and customs that need to be aligned to have no delays to obtain to reach the 136 time, for example. A security program which prevents counterfeit and theft. It is high sensitive material. The reliability, guarantee delivery times is needed to make sure that the goods will be arriving in good conditions. But also transparency, information on existing air freight capacity and lead times per trade lane are needed. Information, capabilities, logistics providers include each cargo facility at transit and destination point to make everything visible and possible. Those are the requirements from the shippers we have obtained and collected it in a summary. Next, we did an insight from the air freight industry. We give you here an executive summary of that survey. We have started a survey on the 8th of September until the 20th of September. We have obtained 181 answers. They were equally split all over the different stakeholders of our industry. The objective was to have a better understanding on the current readiness level in the air freight supply chain for the further COVID-19 vaccine handling. We have received a goal on the readiness and the preparedness, which is reaching just over the middle, with the remark that still 12% is mentioning they're feeling very unprepared, but also 28% feels well prepared. We now ask the same question, but look into the difference if you are engaging with manufacturings or other like distributions of vaccine. We notice now that still 5.09 of the participants has not reached out yet to one of those industries, but already 7.67 already did. And that has a direct link in feeling themselves prepared because they have more information available to organize themselves. We have almost the same results for companies in the air industry who are working with activities linked, for example, to clinical trial. They have information available on processes, infrastructure to handle this type of shipments. The only question we have to ask is if companies that can, knowing that kind of shipments type, are they able to handle those kind of volumes with maybe 10 or 20 times more? To summarize this readiness, we see more than 50% feeling themselves prepared. Companies with a link of manufacturers that may be going to produce the vaccine or involved in clinical trials have an advantage on knowledge, environmental, and processes. A number of companies has also put a dedicated team or task force in place to coordinate this in their own company and working on specific areas like packaging, last mile delivery, or expanding their capacity network with a certified network like GDP CIV compliant members. What is another conclusion out there, out of our survey, is the link with the different stakeholders in our industry. We see that solution providers and freight forwarders are feeling themselves well prepared because they are talking with the industry and having the first-hand information available, which is logic. But what is also concerning out of the survey is that the information is not equally shared. The level of airports, of ground handlers is tremendously less because they don't have any direct contact or information available. They are not feeling prepared because they are not knowing what will come. Is it not fair to say that they are also important since they will also handle the goods and therefore they need staff and procedures to align, but also maybe investments to change of infrastructure. If the industry need to be ready, it means everybody in the chain need to be ready. The biggest concern is overall temperature excursion due to known reasons. We are talking here about time and temperature sensitive products. We need to guarantee the product integrity linked, of course, with the temperature. Else it has an impact on the patient. Our challenge in the industry is also having a full supported lane from departure until arrival. The next concern is a lack of adequate infrastructure. But we here have to mention that it also can be caused by having not enough information available on the product specification. The next concern is transparency, visibility regarding the vaccine. It's a delicate shipment with a high focus during transportation. what requires good visibility, but not limited to milestones. We need with live information on temperature conditions, location, and environment conditions like damage and/or other specification. Topics like availability, capacity, and lead times are followed as the next concern, but we need to think again in regards of a lane, means departure and arrival locations close by the patient due to the shipping time limitations. Our survey was mainly focused on those questions we have mentioned to the concerns. But also there was a free text box, and there we collected other concerns like security, cost, and end-to-end connections, without being shared by the members. Interesting to mention is the response on putting in place additional or premium services. 49% will implement, and 42% may implement a no service. But is giving the idea that a lot of companies will give a focus on this supply and will organize themselves. From the survey we received, members are looking to implement additional premium services in place, like real-time tracking, door-to-patient service, cool dolly service on a tarmac, 24/24 service, and continuous service. Fast service was being mentioned by almost all the stakeholders. We need to understand also a couple of things in these results. Again, forwarders and solution providers are in a direct contact with potential vaccine manufacturers or others to gain information which results in getting themselves prepared. Based on the information, the companies has to make the decision. If not available, they are looking into specific services for handlings. The current situation with having less packs and more cargo flights results also in changes of focuses of companies. Companies who already recently did some investments, just before the COVID-19, for example, which results in a company that cannot afford any additional or other service changes on facility and personnel. They need first more guarantees. The previous comments on the slides is actually exactly the same on this one. It's a given that companies who are already having a challenging time at this moment are not going to make any changes if not having a business plan or a need to do so. The remark here that we know that big providers are currently working on this supply are making changes already on the level of air infrastructure, people, and processes. You read this in the media. But they need alternatives or support. The volume is too big and too large to handle by only 1, 2, or maybe 3 main providers. An important element is information sharing, as mentioned already a couple of times before. In our survey, we noticed there is data available to provide also live, but limited to shipment locations and/or temperature. A lot of data in some areas are only available after request. Imagine you have a product of -70 or -20 with a shipping time of 136 hours, where governments, authorities, pharma companies, and on top of all, media is focused on. It cannot be that a procedure has not the right, that the product has not the right integrity or quality when injecting into a patient. How we know that nothing went wrong? How pharma companies are going to evaluate a dose can be used? They need information. Yes, they have internal information available, but need support in case something went wrong. We don't have any window of days or weeks. We need hours or minutes to respond. This means a lot of visibility provided by merely tracking device. We need maybe new devices or can use existing. Therefore, airlines recommend shippers and forwarders to use airline-owned trackers or approved devices. If this is not the case, we need to make sure that the device is approved upfront before using it. If we review the feedback on facilities, we notice that already a lot of capabilities is available. 50, 25, 2 to 8, and -20 shipments can be handled and stored, which is of course giving us a good trust in our industry. But maybe some questions we have to ask ourselves. Can we support a lane with all related and required capabilities, meaning from departure until arrival location? Is there information on capabilities available so that everybody in the chain can see and can do the same? If we have the capabilities ready, are we able to know what is coming up? Do we know the volume? Do we know the timing? Again, because having not all information available on product, on manufacturing location, on country specification, this means the focus for our next step in our projects. But also, we need to get the industries aligned. As mentioned on the previous slides and before, it's not needed to say it again. One of the biggest challenges is to obtain information relevant for shipping the COVID-19 vaccine. All of the topics mentioned on these slides are coming out of the industry survey, and it has an impact on delivering a good service for the COVID-19. We can conclude to say that there is information out there, but very confidential or available only for a limited of audience. A need for a clear guideline or requirements is needed to prepare the industry on one of the biggest challenges, providing a service on the largest scale, delivering a sensitive vaccine all over the world to each of us, people, patients, and this in the right and good condition. A call for bringing it to the next level, sharing more information and helping both industries to be ready and ultimate to perform. Celine, I give you the floor.
Thank you, Bert. Thank you for these excellent insights. It's really time for this two-way discussion. We'd like to answer your questions, and also if you can go to the next slide, Bert. Yes. And what we'd like to understand is also, is it the right information that you are looking for? What else do you need to know? And also if you have specific experience that you would like to share with the group to enrich also the work of the project. I would like to start. So to answer the questions, we have JC from Changi Airport, the project lead from pharma.aero, and Emir Pineda from Miami Airport, and he's the project lead on TIAC assigned. We have actually a group, as it was introduced, a group of companies that are volunteering their time to make that project a success. So from various companies, and Emir and JC are here today to answer your questions. So the first question is actually to Bert, very, very specific. Do you have the temperature range for the vaccines developed or under development by GSK and Novavax, with all the the uncertainties around, but do you have some good information to share on those two?
No, I cannot share. It is not been published. It is not been shared with us. The only thing they have shared with us that there is a likelihood it stays in the range that they are familiar with for other vaccines. So we can assume 2 to 8, but it is not a given or it's not confirmed.
Okay, thank you. There was also another question on your table, Bert, with the vaccine. If you can just re-explain what you meant by inactivated for the Sinovac vaccines.
Yeah, so as mentioned again, this presentation, so this slide was been published by the WHO. And those 3 vaccines are being published on the WHO site as inactive, means stopped the trial period or the clinical trial phase at that moment. That was the information what has been shared at that moment on the 28th of September on the publication. But I can mention here on the same that we had information that the first what is published on inactive Sinovac is already starting up again. So this information is fluctuating, yeah, every day almost.
Thank you, Bert. Nina Heinz has a question also for you. Nina, can you unmute yourself and raise your question?
Yes, sure, absolutely. It's actually a follow-up question. So we're seeing the evolving information being published every day. So I almost feel like this presentation, if you have it next week, maybe we have some more additional information that's going to be provided. Yes. So I was wondering, Bert, if there's any way to make this more of a regular exchange or regular updates on a weekly or bi-weekly basis to keep everybody informed as evolves, because I think it's rapidly changing every day.
Absolutely, I can confirm, Nina, and you are also in the front of receiving information. This is changing, not saying every week, even every day, and sometimes even every hour. But I think later, JC also will mention how we will continue in the next steps with our project and how we will share new information.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's actually backed up by Janet from Air Canada Cargo, who is also saying that this is very useful information and they would like to really have regular updates.
I like just to add very quickly that the intention here is that we will try to be chain as often as we can. As you can imagine, yes, the information is constantly changing, but we need to make sure that the information is accurate, validated, and make sure that when we present it to our audience and to our members that, you know, we've been able to follow up with the information that's given. There's a lot of misinformation out there as well, so we need to make sure that we account for that when we do our updates. But the intention here is, and JC will follow that up in the next step, is we do plan to have additional webinars and presentations in the future to add to what we are informing today. Thank you.
Yeah, it's actually, there are lots of comments in the chat that are really emphasizing on that, this appetite to get regular updates on this information, because this is very useful. As Emir just mentioned, and Bert as well, really the core of this project is really to look at all the information, but go directly to the source, because there are so many things that are being said. And frankly, we are in an era of fake news and emotional news as well. So we need to put away the emotions and really get the facts right. So that's what we try to get from the pharma shippers. On the air freight side as well, the readiness of the industry is also paramount. Let me just check the chat on other questions that we may have, and I see more coming. Okay, we have questions also on the visibility on the capabilities of ground handlers. It's obviously also a concern. So what can we do to have a better visibility on the real capabilities of the ground handlers at every location? Maybe Amy or JC, if you want to give it a try.
I'll try to answer that. The capabilities of the ground handling is actually quite important to this effort. They are at the front line in many airports around the world, and many airlines count on their ground handling companies to provide the services for their customers. So, you know, investment in that area, making sure from an airport perspective, making sure that your ground handlers are as prepared and as informed as possible is quite critical. We here in Miami are working on a task force to make sure that we as a community are as prepared as possible. And the ground handlers are part of that, a critical part of that effort. I'm sure other airports have done it as well. Recently, Amsterdam Airport announced that they're working together with their community and their government. So there are examples around the world of this effort, but it's all about collaboration between the airport, the cargo community, the ground handling, the airlines, and so forth. Only through this collaboration are we going to really be able to handle the volumes that are expected once the vaccine becomes widely available.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I just want to add on that we have also been seeing a lot of local collaboration, as what Andy has mentioned. In most of the airports, they are talking to their ground handlers and the local industry stakeholders on capabilities mapping, and also to provide visibility of all this information to the vaccines producers as well as other states and players. Then on the global note, of course, IATA has recently also came up with one source. They have also gathered all the relevant information from ground handlers to freight forwarders in every airport to give that kind of transparency as well. In fact, as part of Project Sunrays, we were discussing amongst the joint task force whether there is a need for this project to also perform certain capabilities mapping of certain key hubs. So if this is something that it will be useful to all of you, we hope to hear from you from the feedback or from the email to us as well.
Thank you, JC. It was a bit hard to hear you. You were like sounding far away. Maybe if I can just say the last message to the group is that, you know, we are investigating the opportunity to have this capability mapping, and in case the members feel that it's really a need and we'd like to move forward, we'd like to hear from them. Knowing that there are things existing, and the goal of this project is not to duplicate work that is being done by others. And you mentioned the IATA one source.
Right. That's enough. Okay, great. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Okay, I have a question also on the volumes. Compared to the past, what percentage of pharma is planned to travel on main deck as opposed to lower deck? What are the forecasted changes on that?
Maybe I start the ball rolling. Celine, can you hear me well this time? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's very difficult to answer this question. There's still a lot of uncertainties at this juncture. But we all know that in terms of freighter aircraft, there's only a definite number right now that we have. And given that air travel will not return to pre-COVID level until a few years later, there is an opportunity to actually deploy PAX aircraft that are grounded right now to operate PACC flights. But having said that, I just want to point out that we also need to be mindful that if the vaccines needs to be transported on deep frozen or frozen conditions, and that dry ice are needed, there are certain limitations on the amount and volume of dry ice that can be carried by PACC flights. I think certainly from what we know, in cabin, it seems like it's not going to be permitted, and there's also a limitation to the amount of dry ice for belly hold.
Thank you, JC. Very important indeed, the limitation of, dry ice and also the liquids that cannot be transported on the main deck. We have lots of comments, not specifically on questions, but we want to really raise the feedback, get the feedback from people. So lots of comments on the fact that we need to discuss with Gavi Alliance, with COVAX, and also the Serum Institute of India. So really to understand how they are planning to distribute also the vaccines, especially in every part of the globe. There is a question also on, do we know if the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers and Association, IFPMA, I know they are based in Geneva, intends to share a summary product spec. So maybe a question for you, Bert. Are you in contact with this manufacturing association?
I've been aware of this manufacturing association. We are not in directly contact. It's like you mentioned before. We have noticed of other organizations which we have tried to reach out to, WHO, but also COVAX and other ones. We were in contact. We were directed to good or the right persons, but at that moment it a little bit stopped there. I imagine that those people are also very busy and very intense to answer all those kind of questions. So maybe also on our side we can have a call for, if there are contacts which can be shared for those kind of organizations, please share or bring me in contact with. But because yes, we need to get them aligned with them. Regards on the manufacturing information, at this moment we stay at our front line where we are in contact with the direct shippers, and we try to obtain from there what information we have at that moment. Again, it changes quite a lot, and if we go into need for an update every week, then yeah, we will change a lot of our sources. That will be having an impact.
Thank you, Bert. As you mentioned, and you know, we keep saying collaboration, and this is really critical. That's why both TIACA and Pharma.io join forces, because we want to collaborate and really build on everybody's strengths. And it's not just, you know, a project of those two associations, regardless of the rest of the world. We really want to contribute to the work that is being done elsewhere, and to know also what is being done elsewhere, and to absorb that. We are in discussion with IATA on really understanding what they are doing on their side as well, and see how we can collaborate. So that's one example, and we know that IATA is in contact with this association of pharma manufacturers. So we have a call with IATA very soon, so we'll be able to update you guys on that. We have another very specific question. Thank you, Angelo, for your very specific questions. So maybe JC, it's a follow-up on the question from main deck. Let me read it. For main deck pallets, is there any estimate of split between 300 centimeters high versus 244 centimeters high pallets? If you know how to answer this one.
Yeah, I'm afraid that I don't have this technical knowledge. I'm not sure whether Anya have information on that. But if not, I think we have an airline in our joint task force, Turkish Airlines. You know, we will definitely pose the question to Turhan, and then we'll get back to you very soon.
Yeah, it's going to depend on the airline. Yeah,
I am indeed online.
Yes,
online.
Why don't you answer that one? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends on the freighter type as well. So we are operating B777s and A330s. As far as I know, B777s confirms 3 meter height, certainly. But for the rest, I should need to check as well in order to make sure that we have the right information. Maybe the best is I come back with a written reply.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we are collecting also the questions from from the webinar, just to make sure that we can answer every one of them if we have an answer. So we will share that together with the slides and the link to the recorded webinar to all of you guys.
If I can say, Celine, I see also some interesting information going on, and it's also one of the things that we have shared before. We mentioned dry ice on an airplane, as we thought in this discussion before. But of course, it's not limited to only dry ice in an airplane. It is also dry ice that needs to be handled by departure, but also by arrival, ground handlers, locations, storage locations. So everybody needs to be aligned in this one. We are not focusing only to one element. We need to focus through the whole chain. And that's an important one because, yeah, we can have maybe unlimited capacity or dry ice to load on a plane, but then we arrive somewhere and, yeah, they are not able to handle it or do activities on it. So it is, again, a call to the capabilities view that we know what are the locations and what is the arrival facilitations. So to handle all those kind of volume in the full chain, of course.
Mm-hmm. In terms of capabilities, I can see a lot of comments also on the chat. So the need to really have a neutral platform where we can check the capabilities that are existing. It's very crucial. So some people are nervous about that. If I just pick up the right words. We have another very specific question. Can we have a list, or is there a list somewhere of the airports that have high loaders? Most of the airports doesn't have, and those airports may need to receive vaccines limiting the use of wide-body planes, meaning limiting the use of active containers. So, Emir, JC, do you know if we can have this type of visibility on airports?
Thanks for the comment. I think it's a very, very good comment, because every time we talk about the equipment of cargo handlers or the airport, very often we think about crew dollies, cold rooms, warehouse. But we have often other essential and hygiene equipment such as high loaders. So certainly we will be, in the event that we'll be working on a capabilities database, this will definitely be included as part of the information as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I just I'd like to add that is a concern. I mean, we're lucky and fortunate to be at a large hub airport here in Miami and in other parts of the world, but in many parts of the world, that's not really a capability that's available. And it's a concern, I think, for many regions of the world, particularly in Africa and South America come to mind. What we're trying to do, and it should be maybe something we consider, is reach out to our partner airports around the world and determine what kind of capabilities they do have. And if they fall short, how do we meet that challenge? Because it is going to be something that we're going to need to take account of in the future as the distribution challenge comes up.
And also, I think what is needed is a dynamic tool, because what is, for example, the facilities limitations now, they can expand within a week or two if they find solutions, and that's interesting information immediately needed by the market or by the suppliers. So something that is dynamic, whenever there is a location available, that it can be added on the list and everybody can look into it.
Just one final word. This industry has always been highly innovative, and I think they find a way to unload aircrafts. It's amazing what happened with the PPEs earlier this year, where PPEs were carried on the main deck of a lot of passenger airplanes and loaded by hand and offloaded by hand. So there's ways to get it done, but obviously if we had a more pragmatic solution that we can share, that would be more helpful.
I would like to jump in here.
Yep.
we're trying also to add value to this conversation, and one of the tackles that we see, or the concern that we have, is how big the batches that we expect to be released and going in the same direction. Thinking in a bottleneck that could happen in an airport, thinking of the PPEs, if they're standing outside and in a non-temperature controlled room, they won't be a hassle. But if we are placing, for instance, half a 777, half a 747 in certain airports, we will definitely, according to the information we have, we will blow the capacities of the cooling facilities. And the colder we go, the tinier the capacities are. So, of course, from an airline perspective, we can assess, and we must assess the whole industry, the forwarder, the shipper, what are the possibilities, what are our capabilities, so that we can sit at the table and say, okay, choose your packaging appropriately. What processes can we change around and adapt to reduce the exposure times? But definitely what we won't see is what other airlines are doing in parallel, maybe on the same lane, because we will be meeting back at the same ground handler. And what we also experienced in the March and April experience is that storage capabilities were not enough. So the cargo stayed at the airports that already have limited storage capabilities, because they actually to bridge these situation, but not made actually to store. So from my perspective, it would be very interesting to see how the batches are going to be steered, so that we can see that we have enough capabilities and not dump an airplane on an airport and say, okay, half of it is blown because we don't have the capabilities.
Thank you, Martin. It's very useful information indeed. I have another question. So there are some questions and answers already on the chat. Question from Sanjeev is the assumption that 1 million doses of vaccine require one 747 freighter. Is it accurate? How can we be sure if they don't have the packing dimensions? And we have some answers to that question, but I'd like to hear that from you, Bert.
Yeah, correct. I think these are already, as a lot of all of you are looking for this information. I think this is the $1 million question for everybody, which is, of course, as mentioned in the slide deck, the problem at this moment. It is not known. There is maybe already information available around some temperatures of where the product needs to be handled on and transported on. But at this moment, I think a lot of them are looking for the correct packaging type, passive, active, how many, how big, and this is at this stage the key essence, not only for us, but also for the pharma shippers, how they will ship out their shipments in the best way. Like Martin also mentioned, if they can send a lot out, yeah, that's best for them. But on the other side, it will gives us some challenges to handle those volumes. So it's at this moment a not given thing. There are some information coming up, but it's too preliminary to say it will be that type or it will be that system. That's totally not available at this stage.
Indeed, Bert. I have another comment that is really following on that. It would be great to have if we could have the capabilities needed for each type of vaccine in terms of packaging and container type. So for example, are they going to develop a special box with dry ice and lithium battery? Are they going to need an active container? Can we influence the pharmaceutical companies to develop a special packaging so that we can transport in main deck of a passenger aircraft? So those are yeah.
Yeah, I can actually split the question or the answer in two. You have to bear in mind that every packaging needs to be completely validated and approved internally before they can use it. And this is not a process of 1 week or one month almost. So it is a longer period. So if you are looking for the packaging type, it will be completely not new due to the limitation of timing they have before sending it out. Of course, if needed, they will go into, but they will probably go back to systems they are already familiar with, which are being approved in their quality systems to go first on hand to use those. So a complete new packaging, it can, but I don't believe that much. It will be more packaging that is already existing, is a little bit tweaked and like a sensor placed in it. That will be, but not completely new.
Okay, great. We are coming to an end, so I'd like to thank you all for the questions. Very great feedback, and give the last words to JC on the next steps of this project.
Yeah, thanks so much, Celine, for hosting. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. So as we mentioned earlier on, a lot of work is still ongoing. We are still not done with this project. In fact, I think we are just at the beginning of this project. So next step, there will be continuous monitoring of the vaccine's development. We'll continue to comb through public domains and have ongoing dialogues, not just with vaccine producers, but with every one of you in the Airfreight industry. We are going to do an in-depth analysis of the insights that we have gleaned from pharma as well as the Airfreight industry, and also including a gap analysis so that we can give you certain useful guidelines and recommendations. And all this will be published through white papers and more of such webinars as well as presentations. Certainly, we would like to continue to hear from you. I mean, if you have any questions regarding the webinar or have further questions, please do not hesitate to get in touch with either of the organization. We have also noted from the chat box that there's a very strong call for more regular update on this project, and we will definitely look into it because our main aim is really to add value to our members and to you in the Airfreight industry. So with that, good night everyone, or good morning, good afternoon. Everyone have a great day ahead.
Thank you, JC. Thank you, Bert. Thank you, Emir, and everyone on the call and on the project. It's really a collective effort. We have a lot of people really committed to make that project a success, and all your feedback will help us to better also serve your needs. So thank you, everybody, for that. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.